Okay, so welcome everyone to our second meeting this year, OpenSLO community meeting. We already kind of introduced ourselves outside of the recording, but maybe Anut, if you could give like a short summary of yourself over for the meeting. And maybe we can start with you with just short introductions just for the meeting so people know who we are.
Yep. So I'm Anup, and I work for the social network, LinkedIn.com, and I'm maintaining an internal tool which basically measures SLOs, and we have like developed it based out of OpenSLO, not fully OpenSLO compliant, but heavily inspired, and we would like to be compliant. Like, yeah, that's the gist of it.
Thanks. We can follow with Simon.
Yeah. I work for a consulting firm called the Arctic. We work in DevOps generally, but we do some observability stuff. So we use we try to do everything as code for our clients. So something like OpenSLO is a project that we find really interesting, and we're not using it right now, but we're trying to push for it for our clients, and we're trying to get involved in helping that project getting more mature too.
Thanks. Maybe Bartosz?
Sure. My name is Bartosz. I am a software engineer at Number 9, same as Mateusz, and I am getting introduced to the OpenSLO specification.
Filip?
I'm Filip. I'm from Poland. I'm working daily at WP Engine. In there, we are heavily using SLOs, but nothing is really based on OpenSLO. I'm hoping one day it will be mature enough to actually introduce it in my company, but right now it's more like my private endeavor. And I want to participate in the project more.
Thanks. And my name is Mateusz. I'm the core maintainer at the moment for the OpenSLO project. I'm working with Number 9. I'm also based in Poland, and having the introductions out of the way, we can move to the agenda that we prepared for this meeting. Can cross this out. I did remember about recording the meeting. We can start with the reviewing the action items from the last meeting. It's been quite a while, but the last meeting was in February. Simon, you were there as well. We actually managed to talk through quite a bit of topics here. And the action items that we've written down afterwards are listed here. Not many of these we've been actually able to follow through, I think. I don't think anyone has reached out to Grafana people here. And this one as well. I don't think we've done that, right, Filip?
Well, I write them down on my notes somewhere. I can dig it up and come back to the subject. I forget about it a bit. I forget about it. I will follow up. Sorry.
Thanks. We should have probably assigned, and I think maybe on this meeting we'll do that with assigning people for these action items, because I think if we leave them just like that, it's unlikely that we're gonna follow through with them. We did follow through with the Kubernetes compatibility changes, not all of them yet. So we in the V2 alpha. I think that's V2 alpha, right? The current next proposed version that we have here. We did follow with some changes to the schema. So this is in enhancements, right? And there is V2 alpha 1, yeah. So we check the history here. We did merge this PR that adds some of these things that that we discussed in terms of Kubernetes compatibility. We are still missing the labels correction. So currently our labels are a map of list of strings, and this is not compatible with Kubernetes labels, which are just a map of strings. So that's something that still has to be done, but we did correct the host name here in the API version. So now it will actually just work out of the box with Kubernetes operator as a custom resource definition. I did talk with some people about this one. And as the last point here states, this would require extra time and energy coming under the CNCF umbrella. I think we're too early in the project lifespan to really gain anything substantial out of this. This would definitely impede the speed of the development that we currently have, the flexibility as well, and just the amount of restrictions and goals we'd have to meet is we wouldn't be able to do it at this point because we just don't have enough people to actually maintain this project in a way that would allow us to come under the CNCF umbrella. So I don't know if any of you has some comments in regards to this point.
Well, regarding the amount of people, I guess being under CNCF gives you some marketing force. I don't know how to call it. Like, so it is potential opportunity to bring some more people to actually.
But you have to first meet these goals to come under the umbrella, and I guess that's the real problem, right? So even to think about it, before we even come under CNCF, we would already have to meet certain criteria, which are not easy to meet.
Did you have a chance to like learn what are the criteria actually?
Not specific. I did have a chance to talk with Alex Nauda about that, and he knows some people under CNCF. He also had some stories of projects coming under CNCF, and like his general point of view here was that maybe in the future, maybe yes, but currently that's just a lot of work. And I don't think we have the space to do this amount of work to even meet this criteria. But yeah, it's nothing. I haven't like investigated it thoroughly, So if you feel like maybe finding out more about that and compiling maybe a list of these criterions, we'll go for it.
Sure, thanks.
So anyone else has some comments on these action points from the last meeting? Okay,
we failed with the last point.
Yeah. Quick, edit that out. No, not next meeting in some time, right? Yeah. We're not gonna talk about that because this is something that Alex Nauda was. Where's the strike through? Well, never mind. I'm just gonna mark it like this. This is something that Alex Nauda was supposed to create an issue or a discussion describing this whole idea, but that didn't happen yet. So we're just gonna skip over that. And I think we can start with the only issue that we currently have, right? That is under consideration, under discussion. And since Simon is here, Simon, can you take away and maybe talk through? I will open it. Maybe open the pull request.
Take over the screen sharing, maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be more convenient.
Do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, for those that were not there, I'm just gonna open the issue first. So we can see the idea of this proposal was to add some kind of logic, and this is not what we're gonna do, the or and and, but it's just to show the logic. That was the original issue of having an or and for the alert conditions. The idea being that I was trying to implement multi-window alerts based on the SRE workbook from Google, and doing something like this, which is what they say you should do using multi-window alert windows. And it wasn't possible in the current OpenSLO specifications. So coming back to this, initially the idea the initial idea was to let me see what example was a question. I'll come back to the issue because that's the initial idea. The initial idea was to have some or and keywords to do the logic here, and that if you just put you could still put directly the alert conditions like it's in the spec right now, and it would by default be an AND logic by default.
Just one comment here. It's that in the current spec, we're limiting the alert conditions to. We have a list there, but we're limiting it explicitly to just one. So yeah. So you in current OpenSLO V1 version, you cannot define more than one condition. Although it is a list, it is allowed only a single element. Yeah, sorry.
So in the PR, when we started discussing this, I also looked at having a new type, which would be composite alert condition that I sent as an idea, which would allow to have an operation and then you can either reference an alert condition or a composite alert condition and build it like that. Was another idea. And then in the discussions, what happened is we discussed the idea that to not create, to do a third idea, which was to using multiple alert policies, which would be an or between them, and to make that the conditions would be we would accept multiple conditions, not like in V1, but it would just be an and like this. But the problem I see with that proposal is that it could, like in some cases, you would need to have like it would send multiple notifications for the same problem, because you would have multiple alert policies for the OR. So if you have the same problem, it would just like send 2 notifications instead of 1, which is not really ideal. And that was pretty much it. And then we had this other idea, which was to have a kind of parse an expression of 0 and 1 or 2 and 3 at the top level of the alert policy. And then we just reference like the list of conditions, and we have this field which would have the expression, and we use that to define the logic. And this I didn't read, so I don't know this one yet.
I didn't read it either, so
I don't think it adds anything. So yeah, I don't know. Do people have any thoughts on all of that? Any way that you think is better? I think we throw a lot of ideas of how we could achieve that, but it's not clear yet what's like where we want to go
I think
with this.
Yeah, sorry. I think the something that I think we should keep in mind when extending the specification is the implementation costs, right? So if we make it part of the spec and the product wants to support the OpenSLO spec, it cannot be too complicated, right? And I think with these conditions, it's something that can be potentially complicated, right? Depending on the backend for evaluating those conditions and sending the alerts, it can potentially be a bit complex to have these different types of conditions, like with and or, and if we let expressions there, right, then it can become fairly complex, right? So do we limit them the levels of and ors, or do we just allow any kind of logical conjunctions there? I wouldn't maybe necessarily close the whole discussion here, but maybe we can for now agree on like the minimal step forward, which to me feels like adding or extending or removing the restriction for a single alert condition, and just allowing a list to be defined there.
And then we make it by default end or or.
Yeah. I think we should make it end, because otherwise there wouldn't be an end. There wouldn't be a way to create ends, because you can do those or
logic with that.
Because you can have the or logic with multiple alert policies, right? So if we do it or by default, then you wouldn't have an ability to actually do end conditions, right?
But when you do that, if you do that though, it will for your notifications or just in general for your alert, when both are triggered, you're gonna have like two. It's not gonna link them together, right? It's like it's 2 alerts, different alerts instead of one.
But I just wonder if this is something that we should be. Maybe this is something that can be resolved. Maybe we can have some recommendations for the implementations, and I don't know if this is an issue that we necessarily have to solve within the specification. So maybe the system that handles the OpenSLO spec can have some additional logic to allow this kind of alerts management, right? So saying that a certain like Grafana has, right? When you define, I mean Grafana Prometheus, right, with the alert manager. So maybe this is something that we don't really have to solve.
I think.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
go for it. No, go for it.
Yeah, so I personally feel that OpenSLO should just look at defining how an SLO should look like, as opposed to defining like what are the alert conditions. Instead, what we should probably do is to integrate with all the alert providers, right? Like PagerDuty, all these kind of things, which or have a mechanism on how we can integrate or allow integrations between different things. I'm not sure if there are any open source alerting systems out there. If so, we should probably look at like having a plugin or some way in the spec to kind of define that. Then this whole thing becomes extensible because let's say that particular vendor has a certain way of alerting. We can just use their format and do however we want. And we are not locking anybody into a certain and or conditions or like threshold and things like that. Yeah.
So basically, to do something, do the same thing that we have with data sources, for example, right now.
Yes, exactly.
Trying to think how I would get to.
Because what I have seen, at least from my experience, is that at LinkedIn we have an in-house system which went through like multiple variations. Like initially, LinkedIn before like Microsoft acquisition, we had a system, and now after Microsoft acquisition, we are actually using something from Microsoft. That's another system. Like there are multiple systems out there, and we had to like adapt to each of them, and like solidifying like a particular condition in the SLO configuration will make it difficult.
Or we do something a bit like this, but we have an expression, but the parsing of that expression and how they want to handle it, if they have like the language even of the expression itself could be left to the integration, a bit like how you would define your queries for the observability on the SLOs themselves, the SLEs. You would have the same idea here, or the expression. It's just like a field that can be basically any details. It's optional. You don't need to define it. And we can say the logic by default is and for everything. And we have this expression where you can specify additional stuff if supported by the integration and according to the language of the integration. Maybe something like that could be also a way to do it.
We should probably also investigate, maybe just list out a couple of examples from different providers like PagerDuty or Video or other stuff like that, to see how does the syntax looks for, and what are the config options for those other those providers, notification providers. But yeah, like I agree with Anouk on this one, and that was my like main concern from the beginning, is that I don't want us to force the implementers to do any complex stuff, right? So the default should be simple, and if we want to have some like additional freedom there, then maybe we can just provide it through like an optional fields like this expression or stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Well, it should at least be that it shouldn't break what is already there. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
I think all the proposals try not to break. Like I don't think any of the proposals break the format that was before. But having something that is clear that it's like the not even that it doesn't break, but that to be compatible, you don't need to add any implementation, but it's more like if you want to add that feature, you can add
Yeah.
it. That would make sense, which maybe something like the expression field here makes more sense for that. Since it's really a simple field that can be optional, and it can be pretty clear that it depends on the integration, and like we can leave the syntax to the integration itself, so it's clear that it's not managed by OpenSLO, and it gives more flexibility for the for the integration, but yeah, or something extension could also be.
So to summarize, maybe we can split these into two pull requests. So I think that the one that we agree on right now is lifting the restriction, right, for multiple conditions and having the end logic as a default there. And the second follow-up, I guess, would be to figure out this additional field or fields that we would allow to be set there.
I'll keep this PR
Optionally.
open for that, and I'll open a new PR to remove the restriction.
Okay.
Because I think the discussions on this one were about the
good.
complex logic make sense to keep this one for the managing the field or finding what we want to do with that. And I think we can agree with all solutions that we're interested in starts with lifting that condition. So let's just do that first.
Cool.
And I'll try to explore the idea of the expression that was proposed last week, and I'll write some follow up on that PR.
Okay.
One more thing that I did not want to like stop the discussion because this is the main topic, but I think we are touching the different like issue that I think last meeting we also had, whether we want to open SLO to be like the most basic definition of SLO with super simple solutions, and maybe just suggest further extensions of it, or we want to have like robust spec for any particular like use case that some vendor may have. I think at some point we should decide in which path we want to go. I personally would rather to have some minimal definition of the spec when you can say that, hey, I'm supporting OpenSLO after this few check marks, and further you can just implement our suggestions. But yeah, I think at some point we should decide what we want to do with that.
Stay like fairly minimal. The idea here stemmed from the SR workbook. I think trying to be compatible with what is in the best SRE practices and making sure that with the minimal version we can still define what is the best SRE practices would be in the minimal OpenSLO that we want to have, because it just, for me, it makes sense that if you trying to, just like you're a new SRE trying to put everything in your company, you're following these guidelines that are pretty standard. You want to be able to do it with the core version of OpenSLO. At least that's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
then I agree that we don't want to like add fields like that, add new things, new features for no good reasons. We need to have like we need to keep it minimal, and that's why I also agree that the initial proposal with the and or was too complex and doesn't really make sense. Like it's this one, but this one I agree. I don't think that was the best because it's too complicated and we need to keep it minimal. But I think we can find a way to keep it minimal and still having supporting the what the SRE workbook wants recommend for SLOs.
Yeah, I really like that. Like, say, like, mission of OpenSLO is to provide spec that is able to fulfill like most basic, most like core issues that are described in Google SRE book, and any further stuff is just not a requirement to say that you are supporting OpenSLO. I like that.
Yeah, so I think this we're not really trying to generate new stuff here. We're rather solving the existing problems within the spec itself, right? So if we would be adding alert policy or alert conditions for the first time, then maybe maybe then we would be able to think if it's not too much, maybe even adding those objects, but we already added them, and I think we just need to make them easier to implement now. But yeah, currently I don't think we have we don't really have a section of or we don't really discern things that we are recommending that the implementers may but not must implement. And I think it's a good time maybe with these other conditions to introduce such nomenclature. Like often RFCs have these like descriptions of may, must, right, should, different kinds of verbs to describe the level of support for a certain feature that is in the spec. And some things might be just pure recommendations. We could also have like recommendations on implementing stuff, right, in the future. So yeah, but yeah, I agree with Philip that, and I think we all agree that we don't want to bloat this thing. But rather keep it simple and fairly easy to implement. Okay, so I added, I extended action items with these two outcomes. So I marked you, Simon, that you will create a PR to add the proposal for lifting the restriction for multiple error conditions in the default end logic, and we'll just leave this PR to further discuss the topic of provider or vendor specific fields for our policy. Okay, you can maybe keep the screen and we can move to an issue. If you go to the issues on here, we can go with the allow different days as start of the week. I think that's an interesting one. So unfortunately, Alex couldn't make it. He wanted to, but had some kids/school problems. But I don't know if any of you have read that proposal. So like a short summary is that currently with the calendar aligned windows, we have our calendar aligned window is anchored to a specific start time, right? So in the spec, we have start time field, and the start time is just a date. And if you want to support like proper calendar aligned windows, we need to make it more specific, because currently there's no real way of doing that, right? So you cannot have like weekly based calendar aligned windows. And yeah, this proposal tackles this issue and proposes potential syntax for a field that would allow you to define how do you want this calendar aligned window to be anchored, right? So maybe you want it to be the first day of the month. Maybe you want it to be the 10th day before the end of the month, right? Or maybe you want it to be Monday, or maybe you want it to be Saturday in terms of like weekly aligned windows. So yeah, I think that's an interesting proposal and something that we're currently lacking in.
So, I mean, I can share my experience. We have a similar use case, like the way I'm currently doing, which is where like it's slightly out of spec, is that we use the start, like the time, like the ISO time as the offset. So let's say, like if you look at the time window specification, right, we have to give like a calendar date. And then, so first of all, there are two kinds of, I mean, static and rolling. I'm talking about just static time windows. So in static time windows, you give this calendar date, and then you give like the unit and the duration. So let's say you want to start on Sunday or Monday, Monday, then what we have to do is we like take one of the Mondays as the calendar date, and then you have like unit as days, and then the duration would be 7. So let's say you start on like June 3rd, which was a Monday. So you could technically have a time window which kind of repeats every Monday, right?
So you just like one W, right?
Yeah. So the calendar is used to just for aligning purposes.
So this is the current state of our specification, but from what I understand is that currently we don't really specify properly what the duration means. So for 1 month, for instance, we don't really specify what does it mean. Is it 30 days? Is it 31 days? Is it an aligned next month, right? And I think this is part of where Alex comes from with this proposal. Is we're not very specific, or we are not enough specific in this regard.
My question for this is, should we, coming back to the idea of like what is done by the integration and what is not, I know that I've worked a bit to do some integration with Dynatrace, and at least for that, I could take the 1M whatever and put it directly in Dynatrace because they understand that syntax. But if we specify this is 30 days, this is XYZ, then it becomes difficult to just put that string into the provider, right? Because they might not interpret it exactly the same way for everything. So that's a hard one, because the other way around, you have some cases where you want it to be fixed. There are some cases the integrations will just transform it in a number. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it should be left to the integration, but at the same time, it would be nice to have something consistent.
Yeah.
It's hard.
You can, if you would open, so we can all see it, and on the recording as well. If you would open our main OpenSLO project, and you can go. I can actually send it in the chat. You can open the link, the header link that I sent on the chat.
On the chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it should redirect to the exact header for duration shorthand. Yeah, so there we have written that this specification does not put requirements on how or whether to implement each postfix. Therefore, implementers are free to pick an implementation that best suits their environments. There is, however, the possibility that future versions of this spec will take a more prescriptive stance on this issue. So I guess what Alex proposes there is the more prescriptive stance on the issue. We don't have to, make any pledges right now, especially since I think I was the only person that read and thought a bit about this one, right? So just highlighting it, and that would be great if you have some thoughts, if you could follow up in the issue and share your thoughts there as well. Unless you want to share some more on this issue right now.
Yeah, my only issue currently is that we're making things more complicated further. Maybe we should stick to keeping things simple for now. I'm not saying no to this issue. I'm just saying that I'm not sure if we need it right now.
I wouldn't say that being specific means you are complicating things. I'd say the opposite. I think often being maybe too vague in some regards is maybe more complex, right? Especially if we talk about switching between the different OpenSLO vendors or providers, right? So if we have different implementations of these and different handling of this shorthand duration, then it can create issues for customers. And even if you're implementing those things, it's probably, for me at least, it would be easier to have it, written down in greater details than me wondering how should I actually, handle that, right?
I think if we go the way of doing something like that, more prescriptive and having it, I think in the OpenSLO library, we should do the work of transforming that format into actual ISO standard something, and then the integrations can use that instead of parsing those. Because if we leave that to the integrations, like I said, it's right now I'm just for example with the Dynatrace work I did, I was just passing it to Dynatrace. I have no idea how did they handle it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to parse it. I have to manage that myself. Would be better if the library gives me that, I can then just take it and take the actual dates. But even then, it's for repeating, it's not that like for a duration. Yeah, but I mean, we could have like you say, for example, if we say it's 30-day, but for for duration it's not too bad, but for the start of the week, the calendar aligned time window, it's a bit more complicated to do that. Oh no, I'm just thinking out loud, but
Yeah.
I think we might need to, as you said, just think a bit more about it and put some comments on the PR.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we maybe even with it, if we don't end up choosing anything of the style that Alex describes here, I think we would still benefit maybe from taking a more defined stance on the issue in our spec.
I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. It's just,
Yeah.
I think we have to consider the impacts, and we should maybe, if we do that, I think we should add it to the library ourselves. Should be a method where they can get the ISO from that format, so the integrations don't have to manage that themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair point.
But just to be sure, we don't have right now place for such a, I would call, helpers for vendors who want to implement OpenSLO right now. So maybe that's a.
We will. Once I finally, I mean, I know I promised on last meeting I will do it, but I haven't had the time to tackle it. But we on the last meeting we agreed to move the definitions of our schema from OSLO to OpenSLO. So OpenSLO would have a Golang module, Golang library defined there, which would help build all sorts of things like CRDs, right? And we decided also that we're gonna go with these Golang structs as the source of truth, and off of them we can then generate some JSON schema and other stuff that can help different languages to integrate with the schema. So yeah, once we have
helper function there, right? It would
yeah,
be
exactly.
We just okay,
Yeah. So we would have just this OpenSLO library Go module, which would people be able to use it to do those things.
Would it
That's
be?
a lot. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Would we also have support for protobuf? Because it's pretty common standard now in JSON schema. So maybe like the Golang module being the source of truth, and then we could. I'm guessing you're already planning this. Like you're planning to generate all the different schemas out of it, right? So
yeah.
So we could probably architect in a way like the schema provider kind of interface, and then anybody can implement. Like a new schema comes out, we can just implement the interface and then get a new representation out of it.
Yeah, like we can have all sorts of things based off of that. We can have the protobufs ready generated. I'm not sure if we would need to have all of that in the project itself. Maybe we can just have like another repository for that for some extras, or even show people how to generate it themselves. But yeah.
I have to jump on another call, so
Yeah.
have a good rest of your day. And
yeah, thanks for
you,
participating, Simon, and thanks for following up with the PR that you will do.
no problem. I'll
Yeah.
do that. See you on the next one.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I also have to drop for another meeting. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
folks.
So I think we can conclude the meeting now. Maybe just Philip stay, and we can close off the action points and stuff like that. Yeah. So thanks, Anup, for participating, and I'll see you on the next one, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Bye.
I'll be there.
Thanks, bye.
Maybe it's good that we don't have we don't conclude our planned topics. It means that we have things to talk about.
I will end the recording, and we can just fill out the doc at the end of the action items and participants. Yeah.
Sure, mate.
Okay. So thanks for participating.
Thank you.